And you're live. Hello, and welcome to Forever Rugby on Forever Sports. It is Monday afternoon, lunchtime show, and we are now 2 days after the Springboks officially sealed the series victory against Wales on Saturday with a pretty convincing performance, which I'm hoping has settled quite a lot of the support base because we're now into a sort of a bit of a 2 week hiatus until the next test, which will be against the All Blacks, the Springboks' #1 opponents in the world. It's probably one of rugby's biggest, if not the biggest, rivalry in the game. So the fact that we are going into this sort of period of the back of a series win and more importantly, match win means I think that hopefully we'll be a bit more positive about life when we sort of approach the rugby championship. And I think that we are in for a very interesting rugby championship because the Springboks do walk in there as favourites. I still 100% believe that the Springboks are walking into the series as favourites. You've got Australia coming off the back of a series win, or a series loss rather, against England. You've got Argentina, who are coming off the back of a sensational match win, but a series win against Scotland. However, it's Argentina, a side that South Africa have never really struggled before. Except for playing in Argentina itself. So I think that will be a bit of a struggle. But, the favourites have always been the New Zealand going into Rugby Championship. And at the moment, New Zealand Rugby and the All Blacks are in a little bit of a crisis. Ian Foster under a lot of pressure, statements being put out by the board, talking about the fact that they're having to have, emergency intervention to discuss what went wrong during the Island Series. So, whilst you obviously can't rule out any of the four sides, the Springboks do walk in as favourites. They beat Wales. It was the most convincing win of the series defining matches on Saturday. Yes, Wales aren't particularly highly ranked, but I think that if we're being honest, they are still a good side. And England, South Africa got favourable fixtures in a way in that they play New Zealand twice at home. So all those for me contribute towards South Africa being the favourites going into the tournament. And if you look at it, for example, Argentina have two home games against Australia, and then a home game against the Springboks, but they have to go away to New Zealand twice. Australia, for example, they have to go, they host New Zealand, and they play in New Zealand. So I think they've got quite tricky fixtures in terms of having to play Argentina away twice. And I think Argentina is a particularly difficult place to play. They do play against the Springboks and twice at home, though. So, there's quite a lot going into it with the strangeness of the fixtures in terms of each team having two home games against other sides, except for everybody does, actually. Having said that, so yeah, I think it's going to be a very interesting rugby championship. But I think what we've seen from the Springboks is, and especially today, I don't know if you guys saw it, but I'm going to put the link to the description, by the way. You guys can actually help me out here. We're trying to get our Forever Rugby, which has been a channel which has been relaunched. We're trying to get that back up to, we're trying to get it up to 1,000 subscribers. So I'm going to put the link in the description. And I'd like you guys, first of all, to go and follow Forever Rugby. And you'll see that we posted a video that Rusty Russ posted on Twitter. And, it was a bit of it was part of his debrief to the side following the loss in the second test. And for me, you watch that video, and for me, it's so reassuring because the Springbok coaches have got such a clear plan. We don't know what the plan is. They're not going to share their plan, but it is so obvious that there is a plan. And, I think that they were basically saying that the loss, they found so much value in that loss in terms of seeing so many different players play, in terms of giving them opportunities to play. And what was quite telling about that video, and the reason I subscribed to I added the Forever Rugby link is because you can go watch it on that channel, is the idea that apparently every Springbok player is being given a roadmap. And I'd love to know what that roadmap looks like, but a lot of it includes ratings, for example, a rating between 1 and 5 in terms of how they did in certain aspects of their game. And I'd imagine a roadmap will also have ideas of where you need to go, what you need to be focusing on, what you have to do to become a Springbok starter, Springbok regular in the 23, for example. And again, it's just so reassuring because there's a plan. And that's what we want, don't we? As fans, we just want to know that there's a plan, that we aren't just sort of bumbling around and going from one match to one match with no sort of clear idea. Now, some people don't like the fact that we put like almost this overemphasis on the World Cup. But I do think that we will still go into the Rugby Championship trying to win it. We still want to win the Rugby Championship. We still want to win the trophy. But there's always half an eye on the World Cup and about us being in the best possible space next year. And I think what people also forget is that for all that people say that we are all only ever focused on the World Cup, we won the Rugby Championship in the year of the World Cup. So we still managed to, and yes, it was a short Rugby Championship, but on the way, we also picked up the Rugby Championship, which I think some people forget about. And we also won the British and Irish Lions Series. So we have won every trophy. Rugby Championship last year was the first trophy we had lost. We didn't win since the Rugby Championship in 2018. Because we won Rugby Championship, World Cup win, British and Irish Lions Series win, and then we lost the Rugby Championship. So we've only actually lost one of the past 4 tournaments or series with trophies on the line that we've had. And if you include a 3-match series in like the Wales series, then we've only lost one of the last 5 that we've played, which is pretty exciting. And that's why I think that, we have actually picked up quite a few trophies along the way. So we mustn't be oblivious to that. And if we were to go win the Rugby Championship, for example, that means you would have won 2 of the last 3 Rugby Championships that had South Africa in them. And it would have meant that we would have won 4 out of the last 5 tournaments we were in. So, or series, including the British Irish Lions as a series, as a tournament, basically, because it is that kind of caliber. Yeah, I think it's just quite important to think about it as we move towards the Rugby Championship and what's going to be very interesting Rugby Championship. And what will be very interesting to see is the Springbok side, the Springbok squad. And I think we expect to see a couple of decisions in the next week or 2 regarding the squad in terms of a couple of people potentially coming in. We could have, obviously, something like Cheslin Colby's ruled out. There could be a couple of knocks and injuries within the side. So we'll have to wait and see what the official medical report is. For example, we've already lost Andre Esterhuizen. We've lost Cheslin Colby. So that's 2 backs that we've lost probably for the entire Rugby Championship. So one imagines an additional back will be looked to be drafted in. So you will hopefully have a bit more information about the squad in the next couple of weeks. But let's see who's in the comments. So I'm seeing Marius here. I'm seeing Troyden here. Spencer Swart, welcome. Sean Barnard's here. Kevin Jimmy here. Doubles here. P3 says Dwayne is first in Springbok picking order, but he's definitely not the best number 8 in SA. Sean says, if fit and ready, I think Dwayne will still be number 1 for the Boks, but it's good not having him around now so we can find other players' experience before the World Cup. KPMG says, so looking forward to TRC. Albert Lincoln says, All Blacks always dangerous, but Boks are definitely favourites. Mr. Obo says, Stag was rough. Super glad the Boks stood up the last weekend. The All Blacks are there for the taking. Josh says, Dwayne first choice. I feel like Jasper just makes too much errors per game. I like Kwaka at this point as the alternative. Do you think Kurtley will come in for Cheslin? I would say the Rugby Championship is ours to win or lose. Connor Snape saying, is it possible for the Boks to go number 1 this championship, or do they have to wait until they play France? I would imagine if we were to, for example, go undefeated, we'd probably go back to number 1. I'd have to look at it mathematically, but and also depends on the margins of victory, for example, as well. But I definitely think that, across the 6 games, we should be able to go back to number 1 if they were to go in the right way. Honey says, we all know All Blacks not playing good right now, but when they play us, they always destroy us. All Blacks should 2-0 us. Honey, I don't know what I always love about you is your undying optimism when it comes to the Springboks. Jasper had a rough time last match. I'm keen to see what Rose can do playing with a stronger side. Well, that's the thing. So the title of the video was Springboks set for major injury boost. Now, what we know is that the Springboks currently have a 43-man squad. And what we also know is that there are a number of players who are currently training with the Springboks who are not quite ready. Archies naming Kobus Reinach and Johan Goosen. What we also know is that Dwayne Vermeulen obviously underwent an operation a couple of weeks ago, and which is why he was ruled out of. It wasn't included in the squad itself. However, both Dwayne Vermeulen and Kobus Reinach could be fit to face the All Blacks, which is massive news. On the back of losing Andre Esterhuizen, of losing Cheslin Colby, I think it'd be a very nice boost to have someone like Dwayne Vermeulen and Kobus Reinach back in the side. Although I do think that Kobus Reinach, for example, had a bit of a missed opportunity in these 3 matches. I think Jaden Hendricks has stood up really well. And Kobus Reinach has always been the go-to number 9 when Faf de Klerk has not started. So the fact that Jaden Hendrickse actually benched Faf, he's been the first come off to do that. So in many ways, I think that unfortunately Kobus Reinach has really, and through no fault of his own, potentially fallen down the pecking order having not played this series. But having said that, he will get an opportunity to play for the Springboks at some point this year, as long as he's fit. So he will have an opportunity to put himself back in the mix. But last week, Jacques Nienaber was speaking about them, well, on Saturday rather, he was saying that there are a couple of guys like Kobus, you need to pass an exit medical from Montpellier. Dwayne also needs to pass an exit medical, and there are a lot of guys who are busy with rehabilitation. We will assess the situation and come up with plans going forward. We didn't want to touch on these issues on injuries before we played the final test against Wales. The bigger thing for us these past 3 weeks was just to focus on the series versus Wales. But now that the series versus Wales is done, you're now going to look at the squad. And it does sound like Dwayne Vermeulen and Kobus Reinach are going to be back in the selection fold. Even if not for the first 2 All Black games, you would imagine they would definitely be available to go to Australia because that's right at the end of August. So if they could potentially be ready on the 6th, if not the 6th, then the 13th, I imagine they'll definitely be ready for the 20th and 27th when we go over to Australia, and very much ready for when we go to Argentina and then when we host Argentina. And then very interested to see what their role is. For example, Dwayne Vermeulen, does he come back into the side? We saw Jasper Wiese, who had a man-of-the-match performance in the first test. We then saw Evan Roos, who was pretty solid in the second test. And then we saw Jasper Wiese with a pretty subpar performance on Saturday, where he was actually hooked before half-time. What we have seen is 2 very, very eye-catching performances from Kwagga Smith. Whether they'll back him as a starter, we don't know. I think they very much use him very specifically in that bench role, a bit like a Malcolm Marx, where he has become his role within the squad. And my gut feeling is that they will look to continue doing that. But I think his stocks have risen this series. I think people are finally seeing just how much value Kwagga Smith brings to the side. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how that all sort of fits in. Imagine Fred says, do SA now use 2 separate squads in the Rugby Championship or mix them evenly to build 2 equally strong 23s? I see how we play our B team against New Zealand. Only problem with the last week dropped to 2 places in the world rankings. Magic Fred says, SA beat Wales 30-14 on 15th, 7th. Oh, that's very mathematical. There's a lot of numbers going on there. Beat New Zealand 26-16 on 13th of 8. Okay, cool. Well, if you say so, I'm keen. Tia Vandenberg says, hi Stevie, hope you're doing well. Russ's EQ and connection to the players really shines through in that clip. Hoping that Jaden Hendrickse gets a spot in the 23 for the Rugby World Cup. Or sorry, the Rugby Championship, rather. If we lose the World Cup, there would be bigger complaints, 100%. Also, World Cup is a very big payday if you win it or not the Rugby Championship. Who you back at 14, Jesse or Kurt Lee? Peter Mason says, the Springbok team still looked uncoached. We will not beat Ireland or France. Love the optimism there, chaps. We are only playing them in about 4 months' time. Looked like Rusty put on a few kilos, and he sounded like he had a few. I think he has, but I think we all have during the lockdown period. And remembering also, Rusty is no longer running around the park for them in practice, so the man doesn't get his weekly run around. There's no plan. We're playing the same till next World Cup. Conservative style, no variation to attack. Could have scored more try than Saturday. Yeah, could have, should have, didn't. We still won the game. We did see at times during the series a little bit. I mean, to be fair, we had 3 tries disallowed on Saturday. All scored by backline players, by the way. All with potential moves or potentially really bits. I mean, that Jaden Hendrickse to Lakanya pass, if that was not forward, that's the kind of thing that Anton Dupont does that people rave about. If Lakanya try had stood where Jaden Hendrickse put in that inside ball, people would be losing their minds. If the Marcus on a pimpy try score with a cross kick in behind from the Kanya people will be losing their minds. There were such small margins when it came to the tries that we scored on Saturday, and we almost scored 2 brilliant tries. And if we had scored those 2 tries, and I don't want to be that person with, coulda, shoulda, didn't, because we didn't, but really, really fine margins. And if they had stood, we'd be sitting there going, there it is. There's the box with flair we want to know. Inside ball. I mean, that was like an NFL pass, basically, by Jaden Hendrickse. A bit of a cross-kick flair from the Kanya arm, using the space in behind. That's the backline we want to see. So we were that close from scoring really 2 good backline tries. And I know we didn't. And so you can't, say, well, we almost never killed a man. But I definitely saw a lot of improvement across the park on Saturday. Can we improve? Yes, we know we can improve, but did we improve from game 1 to game 2? Probably. Did we improve from game 2 to 3? Did we improve that the team who most of them played game 1 improved from game 3? Massive amounts of improvement. And so let's wait and see. We saw us taking steps forward. We saw us using the ball a lot more on Saturday. Yes, I think Pollard did make a couple of strange decisions, and it comes down to the game plan in terms of some of the up and unders that we go with, some of the kicks that we use. And we'd all probably like to keep the ball in hand more. But that's the game plan. And if you can't conditionally trust the coaching staff. You either do trust them or you don't trust them. Personally, I think if you don't trust them, then it's completely unjustified because these guys have always delivered in the last couple of years. And everyone critiqued them and said that they weren't good enough throughout the entire World Cup until they won the World Cup final, in which case they became national heroes. And everybody was quick to forget the slander against the coaching staff. So my opinion is that I trust the coaches. I would like us to see us evolve. I do think we are seeing signs that we are evolving. For example, how we played at the end of year tour last year was completely different to how we were playing rugby in the British and Irish Lions series, completely different to how we were playing in the Rugby Championship. It was far more expansive. It was far more exciting. The Scotland game, we had scored some really nice tries, and we really started to look to keep the ball in hand a bit more. And so now we are sitting here after 3-match test series, having seen some improvement, going to a Rugby Championship, which is 6 matches, and then going on an end of year tour. So we are now really in the chock-a-block sort of stages where we will see the Springbok side evolve quite a lot. And it's all about peaking at the right time, isn't it? And we want to be peaking now in the Rugby Championship going into the World Cup next year. And this is where the sort of journey starts. We've taken the first couple of steps towards Rugby World Cup 2023. And I genuinely believe that we have seen a lot of improvement, which makes me believe that we need to just calm down a little bit. In terms of Cheslin Colby, it was supposedly a broken cheekbone that has not been confirmed. There's obviously no Springbok press conference today where we would have gotten more information. I'm not sure if we will have any Springbok press conferences this week or next week. They will definitely start up again in August, and we will try and bring them to you as much as we can, depending on whether they are in Nelspruit or whether they are in Joburg. Will depend on just what we can do. But DRS says, wonder how the Cape Crusaders are doing this morning. Today's the breakdown was certainly entertaining to watch. Lorenzo says, I think you have really good wings. Putting a fullback there isn't the best option. Kwak is an absolute beast. Easily my favorite player. I remember the last time he was subbed on and what hasn't won a turnover. Joan says, Steve, do you think that Marcel and Creel should continue to get fame time or game time in order to improve? I think that I'd be very surprised if we were to see Marcel play against New Zealand, unless he's on the bench, because I think we'll leave our loose trio pretty settled as it is. We might see them against Australia. We could see them against Argentina. So Timon Birch said, do you pay much attention to world rankings? I personally don't. Thank you for the super chat, by the way. I've just seen you ask that question again. So yeah, just to make sure I did see it. I'm not a massive world rankings believer. It's very nice, and look, it's one of those things where you kind of we all naturally will pay more attention to it when you're in a favorable position. I think my only problem with the world rankings is it's so dependent, and I suppose it has to be, but it's so dependent on the opposition you play against. So, for example, when you agree this Wales series 2 years ago, Wales were on the back of winning the Six Nations, and you're thinking, well, we're playing one of the top 2, definitely top 3 best sides in Europe, and they then have a pretty poor 18 months, and by the time they arrive in South African shores, they're sitting 9th in the world, which means from a world rankings point of view, there's not much value. Is it still a decent test? You can decide on that. I think we were still pretty happy that we were playing against Wales. It's probably better than playing against Italy or playing against Georgia, Fiji, Samoa in like 3 different random matches. Was it as good as? Would it have been as big of a test playing Ireland and France? No, probably not. But I mean, France has recently become very good, but they weren't phenomenal 2-3 years ago. And same with Ireland. So it's difficult, to always be able to play against the best teams all the time. And the world rankings are so so reliant on that. So, for example, France have gone up to number one. Playing Japan wouldn't have helped them, but because they played against the European opposition during the Six Nations, which were all sort of top seven, top eight sides, and you play against five of them, and you play 5 matches, you can get a lot of world ranking progression up there. We kind of get that now because now we're going to be playing against the fourth best team in the world. But even that, in the past, the New Zealand side, if we'd beaten them, we're often number one, if not number two. So that's a lot of world ranking points available. Whereas now at fourth, playing at home, for example, it's the equivalent of playing against maybe England at home during that three-test series in 2018, I think it was. Because they're probably about fourth ranked in the world there and then, and playing at home, which makes a difference. So I think that's the issue with the world rankings. And there's no perfect system, so you can't discredit it. Are France and Ireland the number one and two side in the world? Well, the way they played in the last couple of weeks, probably. France won the Six Nations Grand Slam, and Ireland beat New Zealand in their backyard. So you do think that they're probably worthy of their 1 and 2. Are we the third best side? It's difficult to say right now because we only played 3 matches against Wales. We won 2, lost 1. If we go and beat New Zealand twice, for example, and beat Australia and beat Argentina, then you could definitely sit there saying, right, well, obviously we can't compare against France and Ireland, but we will play against them. The nice thing is, if you look at the current world rankings, I think we are playing the entire top 6 throughout the rest of the year. I'm just trying to see where Argentina currently sit after they win on Saturday. But we will be playing against Ireland, who are number 1, France, who are number 2, New Zealand, who are number 4, England, who are number 5, Australia, who are number 6, Scotland 7, Wales 8. We've already played 8. We were playing Argentina. So we were playing against 7 of the top 9 teams, of which we are 1. So the only top 10 side we will not have played by the end of the year is Scotland, who are 6th, and Japan, who are 10th. So I think this year is going to be a fantastic barometer in terms of where we are, because we are going to play against the best sides in the world in all of them, basically. We are playing against the entire top 6. So let's wait and see. If you go and beat Ireland in Ireland, you can't really justify that Ireland are better than Springboks because they're not. If you were to go and do the double against Ireland and France, as well as beat New Zealand, Australia, Argentina, why wouldn't you think that you are best in the world? Because you should be. And I think we probably would reflect that. But for me, I think it's a better reflection after the Rugby Championship because you've had the full Six Nations where all these teams have had a chance to play against each other. We've only played 3 matches against what was the 9th ranked side in the world. Now we're going to be playing against better ranked opposition. Let's see where we are afterwards. And then also let's see where we are at the end of the year because all the various teams are playing lots of different opposition who are in various places in the table. And I think it probably will be a bit more accurate come December, for example. Marit says we are too critical on the box. Have faith we will win the World Cup again. Monkey Paw says world rankings were only value when we were on top. Jamie says, Stephen, I really think Kobus Reinach, if available, should come onto the bench and join Jaden Hendrickse. Rated well with quick ball until things slow down for some reason. I wouldn't yet drop Faf to Clark from the 23. But I would like to see Kobus get an opportunity, and I do think that Jaden Hendrickse has very much taken his opportunity. Timolani, does the guy like Spoon Corsi walk back to squad after coming from injury? Maybe not walk back. I think he will be out. I think he'll only start playing for the URC. So I think by the end of the tour, we'll have a bit more information about where he is in his game. But at the moment, we probably would like to have him ready for that number 14 jersey. I do think Jesse Creel's got the inside track on that. As much as Kurt Janssen played well against Wales, I thought Jesse Creel actually, to be fair to him, played a very good end of year tour last year when he did shift down to the wing. And especially as somebody who's quite bigger, he's very defensively sound. I think he probably right now has the inside track to that number 14 jersey for the Rugby Championship. Tennis says Colby and Snyman Rugby World Cup spots are in jeopardy unless they come back with. I wouldn't say Colby is in jeopardy at all. Snyman potentially if he just needs to play rugby at the moment because he's just not playing. Jean says we have a rare chance to bury the All Blacks. We have to play a perfect match. And Gareth's saying I think the Wales tour ticked a lot of boxes. We were never going to get points from it anyway, but I think our defensive pattern has been a bit figured out. Well, yeah, and I think that's probably the main thing. I think the Springboks are probably sitting there before the series going, what do we want to accomplish from the series? And if you had sit there saying, right, well, first of all, we're going to have a series win, you'll say, okay, cool, that's number 1. We will drop down to number 4 in the world, number 3 in the world. That's not ideal. But you will be able to blood a whole bunch of new players. You will be able to see, I think it was like 42 players played across the entire Rail series. So when have we ever seen that? And ironically, this coach staff has always been criticised for not giving enough opportunities. So I think that as you say, I think it did. I think it did look. I think we did get a lot out of the 3-match series. We now are going into results based. Rugby champion is now about results. I don't even think it's about performance. I think it's about results. It's about how do we now go and win matches? How do we now beat New Zealand twice? How do we beat Australia twice? How do we beat Argentina away, and then beat them at home? How do we go and win the Rugby Championship? And I think that, if we go and do it, then we'll be feeling a lot more relaxed about the entire situation. If we don't, then I'm sure there'll be a lot of complaints and a lot of panic and stuff like that. I'm personally not panicking just yet. Tim van der Berg says our back row looked much better than C at 6, showed that the unflashy work often goes unnoticed. Chap, Sia Khaleesi was brilliant on Saturday. Absolutely brilliant. And you know what? I'm actually getting quite bored of it, because you're talking about the guy who was our South African Player of the Year last season. He had one subpar 15-minute performance on Saturday, and all of a sudden he needs to be dropped. And I know he didn't have his best season at the Sharks. He didn't have his best season at the Sharks last year, before he then was the best player in South Africa last year. Look, I mean, I think Lukhanyo Am and Evan Etzebeth would have been worthy winners as well. But Saturday saw the value in Sia Khaleesi. Look at where was Tommy Reffel on Saturday, hey? Where was he? Why did we not see him? Because we saw somebody like Sia Khaleesi hitting how many rucks? For example, the build-up in the Pollard try. If you go back and watch it, Sia Khaleesi actually cleaned out Tommy Reffel just before the try was scored. Tommy Reffel gets over that ball. Khaleesi doesn't make that clean out. We very might not score that try. He hit a lot of breakdowns, neutralized the Welsh breakdown a lot. That's what he does. He made a lot of tackles, and actually we saw him with ball in hand this weekend as well, which was good to see. So I think he's a very different player to Marcel Coetzee, who loves to carry the ball a lot. But the problem is that 95 of the Springbok fans seem to just want 8 ball carriers in the pack. It's the same thing why people don't like Frans Malherbe. Yeah, he looks very unfit. He looks pretty overweight. Is he winning his scrum penalties? Yes. Is he making his tackles? Yes. Is he running over people and running the 110 seconds? No. Is he doing his core responsibilities? Yes. Is that what we need him to do? Very much so. There are jobs to be done on a rugby field. It's fantastic. Everybody wants to see Archie Snyman because he can put in some wild offloads at the top. And I think he's a very good player. Will Franco Mostert do the hard yards that somebody has to do? Yes, he will. And if you don't have those players doing the hard, look at how the breakdown was a disaster last week. When we had a loose chair of Marcel Coetzee, Pierre-Steph Batoy, Evan Roos, Marvin Orie, and Evan Etzebeth. And you don't want to put on any individual player, but there were a lot of players there who are ball carriers, a lot of players who don't necessarily do all the sort of the dirty hard yards and the dirty work. And I think that we saw on Saturday what the value of that brings in. So we can't only judge a player on his ability to carry the ball and to make thumping tackles. I think it's a very, very limited and pointless measurement of what a player does well. So yeah, it's like JC Creel last year at the end of the year. I had to sit there and say I didn't back it. I wasn't massive fan of him being on the wing, but he played well. And did he step inside and round 2 players and show ridiculous pace for the entire series? No, he didn't. Did he make a lot of crucial defensive intervention? Yes. Was he a very solid ball carrier that got over the game line when he had opportunities? Yes, he was. Did he do everything that he should do and a little bit more? Yes, he probably did. So maybe he wasn't as flashy as a Cheslin Colby would have been, but did he play well? Did he do his job? Did he get the job done? Yes, he did. And that's the main thing. And again, we can't just, that's what people are saying, you want Orenser, you want Orenser at 11, we want Colby at 14, we want Warwick Kallant at 15, and we just want flair. And, what happens if they do get run over and they score a try because defensively, as a unit, they're not up to scratch or they're not reading the game well? Are you then going to admit, sitting there saying, well, maybe somebody's got a little bit less flair but ticks out the boxes might be a better option? No, you probably won't. Unfortunately, everybody just wants us to play this incredible brand of rugby, which, we apparently supposedly did for years and years and years. Everybody keeps saying, the Bok DNA, we played fantastic rugby. People are talking about like the Bok DNA like in the early 2000s. We're talking like 20 years ago here. The last 12 to 14 years has been very much a very set piece, very sort of tight and style of rugby, and it has worked. Sometimes it hasn't worked, sometimes it has worked, but each generation will have its own sort of style and own sort of game plan. So let's not like just try and talk about the glory days as if during like the early 2000s we threw the ball around like the Lions of 2018 and we won everything in our path, and we just never lost any games. We lost rugby championships, we lost World Cups, we didn't win lots of trophies. We won a lot of games, but we weren't always that successful. So obviously we all want to see lots of tries, stuff like that, but do you want to see that? And obviously, in an ideal world, you want to see a phenomenal brand of rugby that throws the ball around with lots of tries, stuff like that. That also gets you trophies. But that's not always the case. I watched the Lions rugby for 3 years in 3 Super Rugby finals. Would I have sacrificed a little bit of flair to win a trophy? 1000%. Because unfortunately, for all that we had some phenomenal games and phenomenal moves and phenomenal moments, we never won anything. And now we're the laughing stock, because it's like, well, you guys had all those good years, but what do you have to show for it? The Bulls played far less attractive rugby than the Lions were playing during the time, 5 or 6 years before. They got Super Rugby titles. So which one do you want? Ideally you want to have both, but that's not always achievable. And at the end of the day, we are Bok supporters. We're not demanders. They don't work for us. They do and they don't. They're accountable to us, and obviously what we give to them enables them. But their job is to deliver us titles, for example. And this is how the current people see it fit to play. And so we've got to trust that. And we've got to trust it. And I think they deserve our trust. As I said, if Ian Foster, for example, is losing the trust of the people. So in that situation, when you don't know the results, you're not liking the way you play, there's a lot of cumulative things. And you can sit there going, right, well, he's lost the support, if you lose the change room, you're gone, by the way. If the players no longer trust you, you're gone. The players trust this coaching staff. I trust this coaching staff. That doesn't mean I don't want to see improvement. That doesn't mean I'd like us to maybe play a bit more openly, but I trust them to do their jobs. I trust that they are the right people. And therefore, with that trust means a little bit of, you know what, I might not like it, but I back it. That's what being a supporter means. And we can't throw the baby out with the bathwater every single time we don't get what we want. People wanted change. People wanted to see new places. People wanted to see Evan Ruiz. People wanted to see Kirkley Arnson. People wanted to see Andre Esterhuizen play. People wanted to see Marcel Coetzee playing. And then everybody had an absolute meltdown, and they said, well, we wasted our money going and watching the Springboks taking on Wales. I imagine sitting there saying you wasted your money going to watch the Springboks play against Wales. You wasted your money going on seeing the start of Evan Ruiz's Springbok career. If he goes and plays 100 games, you could have been there at the start. You wasted your money going and watch. How many British and Irish Lions were out there? Dan Biggar, Liam Williams, Josh Adams, George North, Alan Wynne-Jones, the most capped player of all time. You got to watch him in the flesh, but you wasted your money because we lost a game. That's a lot of crap, Don't be that supporter. Don't be that supporter where it's just so conditional. I will support the Springboks only if they're playing phenomenal rugby, if my favorite player is playing, if I like the coaching staff, if the captain's the person that I want to be the captain, if they're winning all the trophies, if they're curing cancer as well as turning wine into water, then I'll support them. If they're not doing any of those things, then I'm out. Then that's not what I'm here to do. And you must give me your money back because I didn't get exactly what I paid for. Apparently there's a disclaimer on your ticket when you buy it that says, this ensures the Springboks will do everything you want, win the game, deliver you a trophy, have a free beer, and you will, be happy for the rest of your life by paying your 350 Rand to go and watch the Boks play. Come on, guys. People need to be a little bit more reasonable. And I'm sorry I'm going on a tangent, but Springbok Twitter at the moment is driving me up the wall. And I think you guys are probably the ones keeping me pretty sane, because I think a lot of people here are very much on the same sort of bandwagon in terms of just we support the Boks, and as a result, we live with the good and the bad. And again, I'm not saying that you can't ask for them to play better, but that doesn't mean you should disregard what we're doing, and we should disregard anything that we've achieved just because it's not been done in the way you would like it to be done. But yes, let's go back to some of the comments. I'll scroll up a little bit, but I see Med saying for the New Zealand games, Orange, so for Colby, Kitsy at 1, Trevor better in bomb squad at 8. I don't know. Visa slow to get to the racks, drop balls. Quacker made huge difference. Kutsia also an option. Side Cam says Thor's calmness when the team is under pressure is massive for tight games, and Clovis is always reliable and confidence booster for our attack, but coming back from injury is a concern 100%. I mean, for example, people had a meltdown about the fact that Alter Junkies was coming off not playing any rugby and starting against Wales. I know Dwayne Firmino played a semi-final a while ago, but he's coming back from pretty extensive injury where he's not going to train for a lot of time. But would you have an issue with him starting against the All Blacks? Our biggest game of the year, arguably? I don't know. Jeremy says, Stephen, you sound really pissed off. I feel your pain and frustration. People must really just chill and watch the game and leave the selection to the selectors. I'm not pissed off. I'm just frustrated. I'm just frustrated because life at the moment as a South African is tough. It really is tough, guys. We all know how tough it is. You know, the economy is a joke. The petrol prices about the... I mean, it's probably cheaper to buy a house these days than to buy a tank of petrol. We've got head load shedding. We've got blooming shootings not happening in South Africa. It's really tough down here at the moment. And unfortunately, I think a lot of our frustration then spills into the things that usually bring us a lot of joy. For example, you know, we always look forward to a Springbok match on a Saturday. When that goes badly, we then... it just compounds all the other issues we've had. It compounds all the frustrations that we're going through on a day-to-day basis. And I get that because I'm the same. I'm the same. If I've had a bad week and then the one thing I was looking forward to goes badly, you sit there going, well, that was crap. But every now and again, and this is why I like these shows during the week, Saturday night, be emotional. Throw the tantrums. Say what you want. Sunday, chill, take a breather. Monday, take a step back. Was it warranted? How much of it was warranted? Maybe some of it was warranted. Very well be. Maybe what you said when you're emotional actually does hold true on a Monday. But reflection all the time and then coming back and thinking about things a bit more intrinsically, I think, is a very healthy practice. The HJH says, Francois Pino also wasn't the best player in his day. Lots of complaints that someone else needed to make the team. He got chosen for other reasons. Look, I think, but to be fair, I think Siya Khaleesi at one stage that kind of idea could have been true. At the moment, I think he's the best 6 we have for our system. Then nobody moves him for what he does. Nobody can do what he does at the moment. So I think he's completely there. Even if he wasn't the captain, I'd select him tomorrow. Mohammed says, what do you think about them concentrating on Billinster specializing at 10 to push Park for a starting spot? On attack, Billinster operates in the half channel, looks really good. I would not move Billinster to 10 anytime soon. That number 10 jersey threatened to derail his career because he wasn't playing well. He was really showing responsibility. They shifted him at 12. They shifted him at 15. He now looks phenomenal, which is why people are now saying back at 10, leave him at 12, leave him at 15. He has to play 10. He can probably do it, but I definitely would not be shifting him back to 10 full time. Let's keep doing what we did to get him to his best, and that's playing him at 12, playing him at 15, giving him the freedom to express himself without necessarily the responsibility and the change that sometimes comes with being a fly half. Sally Cameron says, if you only support the Boks when they're winning, you're not a supporter. Brave Stars says, I think they could have at least called out Moni Liebach, considering Yankees hasn't played whole year. I think it's BS to say Moni can't play the Bok game plan. Look, he probably deserved a call out. I'll be interested to see if we do go down that route, if we do get another injury. Ari Ferreira says, well said, we support the Boks no matter what. You win some, you lose some. Hey, imagine being an All Blacks fan this morning. I love it. Tafadzwa says, besides the attack, I think the Bok game plan is bulletproof. Contender says, Kalanta's covered 3 positions for Boks, covered 11 versus Wales, and scored his debut try in 2017. 2019, covered 15 versus Namibia, got a try, covered 14 versus Canada, 3rd try. 13 as his next stop, or Creel as 13. I definitely think Creel is the second choice 13. But I do think I've always wanted to just see what Kalant could do at outside center. Maybe it's more of a personal passion project than what is actually a good idea for the Boks. I just think he could be quite special there. Lorenzo says, Williams at 12 look better than both our 12s, more exciting and offloading tackles, keeping the ball alive. DRS says, man, hoping Tyron and Jordan get the call up with the injuries in the back line. The Vuk experience here seems to have gotten his mojo back. The man was a beast and his hunger's back 100%. DD says would like to just see some variation in our ball carrying the forwards at the moment. The defense knows the ball carrier will not pass once in a while. You put doubt in their minds. Luis, I think Henderson should be called up. Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing the future goat fly half Jordan Henderson. People are coming here with their Sasha and Gomez Zulu. Guys, we can't put our faith in the Stormers fly half. Come now, people. Are we really going to back the Stormers, buggers? If you want to win the next World Cup, you've got to have a line at fly half, chaps. I don't write the rules. It just says next to how to win a World Cup, Lions fly half needs to be there. You know, Alton Yankees wasn't on the field in the last World Cup, but did we have a fly half in the Lions and we won the World Cup? Yes. Did we win the World Cup 2007 with the Lions World Cup fly with the Lions fly half? No, but he did come to the Lions afterwards, old Butch James. So, you know, it's just one of those things that has to happen. So therefore, on that very flawless logic, we should definitely be calling up Jordan Hendrickson. And just playing with Jaden, just for bands. On the reels, though, Sachin Gomezulu looks a very special player, and I think we've got some incredible 10s coming through. And then Sachin Gomezulu, Kate Voliter, for example, that's fallen on the way side. Interesting to see if Wood Chamberlain can step up, and Jordan Hendrickson. I think we've got 4, 5 very young, very exciting fly halves. A whole different generation coming through. You know, I think it's a very different type of fly half. We're not seeing necessarily the Butch James, the Andre Pollard, the Mornay Staines, you know, those sort of fly halves. I think we're seeing more of a new generation of attacking fly halves and players who like to run with the ball, who like different types of kicks, for example, and like to try and play the flair. And that's obviously, it's coming with schoolboy rugby, where you grow up watching, you know, as a fly half, you probably don't grow up thinking that I'm going to be a Mornay Stain. And that's not to say that there's anything wrong with Mornay Stain, but I think that you watch Super Rugby and stuff like that, and you watch players who can throw those miracle passes and they look cool. And I think especially when you're young, you don't necessarily understand the value of a Mornay Stain, who was phenomenal for so many years, doing the basics incredibly well. But it wasn't attractive. It wasn't always, you know, that's exactly what I want to do. So many people didn't like Damien Dale for years and years and years. People didn't rate him because he just ran one way and he covered, you know, he'd make a few yards, but that's what he was doing. He was a bit of a boring player. But look how good he's become. And he's evolved a little bit. He has got a little bit of an offload game, but his core purposes still are to be physical and to get over the advantage line. So, yeah, but I do think that influence has created a different breed of fly halves coming up. But I do think that Jordan Hendricks, for me, is a very special player who looks very mature. And I think that's the important thing when it comes to taking the next step is, are they ready? Sachin Gomezulu, for example, has played 2 professional matches in his career. Imagine asking, I mean, people are asking for him to be called into this box squad on the back of an under-20 tournament. He played 1 match for the Stormers. His first match, I think he played 2. I think he played in the finals. What, did he get on? I think he did get on. His first match for the Stormers, his URC debut came in the semi-finals in June. Before June, he had never played a URC match. Put it in perspective. And now people are asking for him to be in a box squad. There is a lot of road ahead from Gomezulu to navigate before he starts playing his Springbok career. Will he be a Springbok? I 100% believe he will be. I 100%. I would put a lot of money on the fact that he will one day play Springboks. If he stays injury-free, he will be a Springbok. He's one of those players who you think is just, it will happen. You know, I think like Evan Roos was in that caliber where you knew he was going to be a Springbok. We were not here. I think I was saying 2 years ago, he will play Springboks. It's just one of those things. He looks too good not to. But you've got to get them at the right time or else you risk derating their career. So letting Gomezulu go play another season. Let him play another season after that. For me, 2024 is where I'd like to see Sachin Gomezulu playing for the Boks. And he'll be 21, 22 years old. He'll still be really young, but he'll have 2 seasons of professional rugby under his belt. And by then, you know, I think that hopefully he'll be ready to start being integrated, not even first rate integrated. Jordan Hendricks is obviously a year older, but I think that they are very different maturity levels. You know, you look at the size of Jordan Hendricks, for example, you look at the physicality he brings. He's 21 years old now, so he still would be very young to come in, but he doesn't play like a 21-year-old. He doesn't look like a 21-year-old in the way that he plays the game and in his physicality. I think he could play at inside centre very easily for the Lions, for example, if we were to bring in another fly half, like Gianni Lombard's coming back in. Ngomazulu got to play another season. Hendricks has now been playing at this level for 18 months. He was playing last year, beginning of the year. He played against British Irish Lions pretty well. You know, he's played against some proper players and some proper teams and looked very comfortable at the level. We haven't seen Ngomazulu do that yet. He could very well do that. He could maybe outclass Leinster tomorrow. Who knows? But let's wait and see and let him do it, and then we can start bringing him in. So Chris Smith, again, I wouldn't mind him coming to box squad. I wouldn't mind seeing either of Molly Liebach, Chris Smith, or Jordan Hendrickson in this box squad. I really wouldn't. Because I do think we need another choice fly half, and I wouldn't really mind which way they went. Obviously, I'm biased because Hendrickson is a Lions player, but I just think that he, at 21 years old, has got everything. He just ticks all the boxes for me. He's defensively very solid. He's got a massive boot. His work on attack is pretty good. And for me, he fits a mold of a Springbok flower half pretty well. So if you could get him in training with those guys for another 6 months, I think it would only do a world of good for him. But Louis says Jordan was in my team of the series of URC. Brave Star says too early for Sasha in the senior team. Ricardo says Jordan Henderson next box 10 before end of the year. Fred Kruger says the box are using Willemse to cover 10, 12, and 13. That's what Jacques said. With a 6-2 split, you need backline players that can play positions in the back. Millet says we don't have good backup at 10. Goose still injured. Liebach is like for Yankee. Smith like for Pollard. Liebach very temperamental. Smith very ordinary. Imagine if friend says Jan Surf 10 has been one of the best 12s in the top 14. I wonder if there's room for him. I wouldn't mind him. In fact, that would be a very sensible decision. If we were to announce tomorrow Jan Surf 10 is back in the box setup in place of Andre Esterhuizen, I would give that selection 2 thumbs up. Sean says would like to see that down in the future. Henderson Bros in the green and gold. Jeremy says, see reminds me of Andre Voss as captain. I always ask myself, where's Voss until the end of the game? You see the stats that he made 20 tackles and clean out racks like a beast. Very much so. Mr. Obo, Boca going in the right direction. Keep up the great content, bro. Thank you so much. Really do appreciate the super chat and appreciate our members as well, by the way, because I think we've gone over 150 members this weekend, which is very exciting because, yeah, the members, the super chats, you guys use, everything all contributes towards us being able to keep this channel going. And the more that we do, the more views we get, the more members we get, the more super chats we get, the more we can do. Like go to Niles Parade for the week and bring you guys all the press conferences and stuff. We are going to start wrapping up though. Sally Canvas says, where is Pio Dianti back in the mix? He is definitely special. He'll be in for August next year. I think Rikus will also come to the Springboks. Lubok can take on the opposition through the middle of the field. Did I miss the show? Yeah, I'll be unfortunately. We are wrapping up at the moment. Do you think we'll see Arendse replace Inji Colby for the test against the All Blacks? I personally think that we'll probably go with Jesse Creel ahead of Cheslin. I mean, ahead of Kirtley. But yeah, people, please just smash a like on the video. Fantastic to keep these shows going. We've obviously got a lot to talk about for the next 2 weeks until we do see the box play again. We can talk about a little bit more about the URC as well and have a delve into what some of the transfer business has been happening. Some very interesting moves. I see that Joseph Dweber, for example, was at the Western Province Rugby offices today, getting his sort of first taste of what life will be like next year. And the Lions, for example, have still not signed anybody, which has like really gotten me excited. The Bulls, however, are signing lots of very good players. The Sharks have not signed too many new players lately. You know, they obviously got their business done quite early, which is very good of them. So we've got a lot to talk about in the next couple of weeks. Smash a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel as well. I really want to get up to 15,000 subscribers. I thought we were going to get there on Saturday, but we are about 250 odd short. So subscribe if you're new, and let's try and get that up there, shall we? So by the time we take on the All Blacks, we're over that 15,000 mark. And yeah, keep well, keep safe, and